Let's move on to this question here. Anonymous sent it in. Let's open up a can of worms, why don't we, Father? Why was the death penalty seemingly not fully rejected by the Catholic Church until Pope John Paul II?
Well, since I wrote a master's thesis that touched on this, I've kind of done a little more research than the average person. Yes. So keep this in mind. It's a fundamental teaching that the state has the right to keep order. Thus, the state has, and I mean that in the sense of the government, has the right to have a police force. That police force, it just said a force. And when needed, and it's very rare, contrary to what's talking to the news, you talk to the average local police officer, he can be a police officer for 20 years and maybe pull out his weapon a few times. The same principle on the just war theory, in that, of course, we don't immediately go to war. We try diplomatic means. We try other courses of action. But the state has the right to defend itself and defend it. In fact, it doesn't take that back. The state does not have the right to defend itself or its citizens. It has responsibility. Similar to an individual man go, well, I don't believe I could fight someone. And then you can say, good, you can take that position. But if you become a husband and father, you have to defend your wife and children. The Thomistic argument is we don't immediately go right to the death penalty, and it's not used for every crime. It's most serious ones. And the analogy is Thomas uses, actually goes to a physical one of the body. If your foot has gangrene, it's not good for you to lose your foot. But if I do not amputate that foot, you're going to lose your leg and ultimately your whole life. And so when we do capital punishment, we are cutting off a gangrenous member. Now, you now have a body that is semi-crippled. You're going to need to get an artificial limb, or you won't be able to walk at all. So, and Thomas uses that example because it is that extreme. We do not wish to use capital punishment. And the fact of the matter is, when the church condemns, it's talking about places like China, where political prisoners who, for religious reasons or whatever, are put to death, who have committed no capital crime. So the punishment does not fit the crime. John Paul is the first one to raise the issue that in this modern age, don't we have the means of some other of course of action? And okay, if you want to incarcerate someone in solitary confinement and a 4x6 shell, where they only get out 1 hour a day to walk the quad for the rest of his life, and you think that is not cruel and unusual, the state can do that if they wish. Pope Francis was a little more confused on his argument, but again, I think he was talking about an appeal to mercy. Mercy is always very good, but there are heinous people who do heinous things, and they sometimes need to be removed from society. If we know for a fact we could keep them incarcerated, and they also would harm anyone else within the incarceration, which, by the way, incredibly expensive. You ever heard of a triple max federal prison? To keep a prisoner there 1 year, it'd be cheaper for you to send your kid to Harvard and pay full tuition. If you ever want to do some research, look on how much money our nation spends locally, state, and federally on incarceration. It's massive.
Yeah, that's part of the question that gets me is there are people who are just not capable of being reconciled with society. And what do you do with them? You keep them incarcerated forever. You have to front the cost of that. There's a chance that they get out. There's also sometimes criminals, most likely, at least in recent history, criminals just kind of get released back into society, and yes. they kind of slip through the cracks, and then they're back out there.
There was a case the other day. Yeah. A guy had 3 life terms, was a horrible sex offender, attempted murder on several occasions, only been in prison for 20 years on 3 life, not concurrent, but consecutive sentences. And a liberal judge in California said, well, you're over age 50 now. We should let you out, which I understand that legal principle at all. And so now you have a predator back on the streets who's supposed to be behind bars. And the reoffense rate, recidivism as they call it, is incredibly high. People with serious crimes.
There's some people that, that make a point of euthanasia, saying, that the people that are sick in hospitals cost the taxpayers money, so much money. So why don't you just be merciful with them and just give them euthanasia? And also, some people say regarding the death penalty, they'll say, they support wars and, support the billionaires' wars. How do you go from the death penalty being okay and the other things being allowed? It's kind of like they kind of contradict each other.
That's you make a very good point there, because people often conflate as they mess certain things together. Again, the first recourse of a nation should not be war. But if they're attacked, they have to defend themselves. We can go into the politics behind certain wars. You can dig back all the way back for World War I, all sorts of theories out there. But the fact of the matter is, for example, when he was approached at the very beginning stages, when World War II was emerging, Gandhi was asked, should we, peacefully resist? And he said, you can't. You cannot peacefully resist the Nazis nor Hitler. We could resist the British because they had a conscience, and ultimately it bothered them how they were treating us. Hitler has no such conscience. You must go to war. That's Gandhi. He wasn't even Christian. In the case of euthanasia, the person is not guilty of anything. They're just ill. The argument about cost, some is often brought up. The argument is often done on the other side. Person is very ill. We should spare them their suffering. And if I'm a non-believer, there's a logic to that. Because outside the faith, suffering makes no sense. We as Christians see, though, suffering for some people is the cross they've been called to. And we don't give into the sufficiency. Now, keep in mind, they legalized euthanasia in Canada several years ago. And in 2024, in just the region of Quebec, over 24,000 people were put to death who voluntarily went in, and almost none of them were ill. Some of them had some mental struggles. Some were sad. Some were just teenagers. Canada has gone off the cliff and left the Catholic history it has. The only reason they had to slow it down in 2025 is they couldn't find enough doctors willing to do it. Now, we treasure innocent life. That's like, for example, why we defend the unborn. The child in the womb has done nothing, as opposed to stopping the criminal who's murdering people. And essentially, there has to be guilt. Guilt needs to be addressed. Innocence must be defended.